Foundation is a great resource to you, a great partner, because the Community Foundation will do all the complex things you shouldn't be even thinking about doing. Somebody asked about brokerage accounts. You can channel your stock transfers through the Community Foundation. They have a relationship. They'll give you that same letter of the mean between the bid and the ask the next day. You can use them as your receiving entity for stock. You don't have to go out and say, oh, how do I do this letter? You don't have to do that. And a lot of the things that really support gift planning in a community really come from the Community Foundation. Here's another reason why. I've been on many boards in this town and hope to be on more. They will always be run by volunteers who will never know any of the rules. And you really ought to think about that. I call it the crazy pastor rule. And I think about it this way. About 10 or 12 years ago, I was listening to public radio all the time. It's in my estate plan, a revocable beneficiary designation on a retirement plan, TIU, FIU, and some others, no question. But I was listening to a story on minority colleges and how desperate things were about a dozen years ago for minority colleges. And a guy who was being interviewed actually said on the phone, we're spending through our endowment, but when that's gone, I don't know what will do. I screamed into the phone, into the radio, screamed. If a donor designates an endowment, if I write on my gift, as I have done for Middle Way House and from other charities, if I say it's endowment, it has to be endowment forever, even if you, the charity, close your doors. You cannot spend, it is not a savings account for rainy days. And volunteers always think that. So honestly, if you really want professional management and understanding, I will be honest, I worked with a charity here in town that took umbrage to the fact that I said, we are not reporting stock values by the amount of the check we got from Hilliard Lyons. That's how they were reporting. I said, it's the mean between the bid and the ask. That's after they charged us a fee and after they settled it. That is not the tax. They were like, that's what we got. That is not the value. They will always be run by volunteers who never know the rules. So run, not walk to the Community Foundation if you want professionalism. And I do. I love, you don't know, the executive director today may be great and could be a fright. Could be a fright coming up. You just don't know how that's going to work out. So our goal is to talk to everybody. And I would say this in terms of the development operation, make plan giving a goal. Because if you don't make it a goal, it never will be. It will never be the golf tournament. It'll never be the annual report. It will never be any spring fund drive for Dorothy over here at FHB. It'll never be any of those things. So if you don't make plan giving a goal, it will never be one. So you have to incorporate it and talk to your board and talk about things you're going to really take on. All right, now let me tell you this story, and then we'll tell you what's in these materials. This is the power of plan giving. I do a lot of work with community foundations in Indiana. And I was in a community, now probably 7 or 8 years ago. And the story was that it's a fast-growing county of Indiana, and they wanted a county park before it was all paved over. So the Parks Department had put a letter in the newspaper, the county newspaper, we'd like to look at a farm, and this farm family comes forward, and yes, their farm will do. So fast forward, here's the story. They have a 154-acre farm. They're going to sell 134 acres to the Parks Department, and mom and dad are going to live in the 20 acres with the buildings on the side. All right? And it's because of a zoning rule in this county. They have not written one thing down. And why is this important? Because once you write it down, if I have an offer, if I'm selling my house and I have an offer and I accept it, the government says you sold it, the capital gains are yours. So you have to, if you have people that have a lot of land, have a lovely home, you have to have property out of state, you have to talk to them in advance. If and when, this is what I say to donors all the time, if and when you can't drive out to Arizona anymore, if and when, that farm gets to be too much, if and when you want to downsize and move out of that house. See, if and when, that's what I say. If and when, that doesn't sound threatening at all, does it? If and when, call me first, because I can do something magical, because in charitable plans, we can do things pre-tax. Even Scott doesn't get that. We get it in the charitable world, pre-tax. So I'm always talking to people about that, because if you've signed on the dotted line, the government says, gimme, gimme, you sold it yourself, right? So they've written nothing down. I meet the couple. I drive to this county. The park superintendent calls me and says, Pam, here's our story. Is there a gift plan here? And I said, oh my. And my goal always is a gift conversation, because I believe nobody knows anything about these ideas, and that has been my experience in my entire career. No one knows anything about these ideas. So I drive to this county, mom and dad, 79 and 80. Here's the accountant. Neither the accountant nor attorney have ever done a charitable plan in their entire life, and they're scared witless. Scared witless. And I say to mom and dad right away, well, you can just go right ahead and sell that 134 acres. I hear it's going to be 1.5 million. You'll never have more money. Just go right ahead. It's up to you. Because that is true. They can sell that. I said, but however, if you do say goodbye to 20%, then capital gain, federal was 15, state, maybe 5. I said, say goodbye to 20%. I often wave, because my kids went to Montessori, and it's very tangible. Wave. Wave. And 20% sounds like a heck of a lot. That's a fifth. I said, do you have any debt on the farm? Are you kidding? They're Hoosiers. I said, then you have many other options with your farm. And I came up with this idea right off the top of my head, and this is how it unfolded. Mom and dad did 4 deeds. This is why plan gifts, when I was at IU Foundation, people called me, because these ideas are so beneficial. You can be better off with a gift plan than without one. And that is shocking to most people who say, if I give to charity, I've taken away from my kids. That is not necessarily true at all. You may have made your kids better off, and this story illustrates it. Okay, so they don't have any debt, so they did 4 deeds. I said to them right away, you couldn't name anything at the park. Hello, they're going to live next door. Isn't that a pretty logical question? Well, we're going to name the shelter house. I said, why would you sell this, pay the government 20 cents of every dollar, so then you could write a check to the parks for the shelter house? That's foolish. I said, you could deed. So deed number 1, mom and dad did a deed. We deed 2% of the undivided fractional interest in our 134 acres of farmland in whatever county of Indiana to the Parks Foundation. I said, great, you made a pre-tax charitable gift, the one you told me you were going to make. I said, you don't get 2% of the money, but you get to deduct 2% of the value, and you don't pay capital gains on 2%. All right, win, win, win. They're 79 and 80. They're not going to the market. Forget it. They did deed number 2. Mom and dad transferred 15% of the undivided fractional interest in their farm to the local community foundation in exchange for a 6% fixed for life charitable gift annuity. I leaned over and said to Mom, the great thing about this, you'll never have to renegotiate the rate, and it'll survive till the second of you passes away. She says, wow, the bank's paying 0.5%, right? We're better off. And I will tell you, when she gave that to a community foundation, that means no capital gains, right? So she didn't pay 20% on that. They didn't. And because eventually they will pass away at 79 and 80, they got an income tax deduction as well, because at the end there'll be a charitable remainder. It was 55% of the value of that sliver of land. They deducted over half of it for income taxes. I said to Mom and Dad, do you have kids? Yeah, we have 5 kids. I said, you want to bring them all in so they could hear all about this? Hell no, Dad says. Hell no. When it's all done, said, and delivered, we'll tell them. Now, never misunderstand that. The kids are always heirs. It just means they're not deciders. Do not misunderstand that. So deed number 3, Mom and Dad transferred 30% of the undivided fractional interest in their 134 acres in whatever county to the trustee of a charitable remainder trust. Now the kids are getting 5, the beneficiaries, the kids, the 5 kids. For 20 years, the kids get 5% income off a trust that's gone like this, because I went with the attorney to interview trustees. That's how frightened they were. It's gone like this. Mom leans over and she says, you know what? When my parents died, I inherited quite a bit of farmland. How that would have helped us when we were raising our 5 kids on that 154 acres. Our farm income was $15,000 a year. She worked in county government. He drove school buses. That's the only way you make it. Now, do my math. 2% outright, 15% to a gift annuity. Mom and Dad get 6% for life. Kids are getting 5% off an escalating trust right this minute. That was 47%. None of that was subject to capital gains. I can fund pre-tax. They sold 53% of the farm for $900,000, paid 0 tax. I've been back to that county 3 times. What did they do? They're better off. Everybody's better off. If they had sold it, when I saw, I love, Tina, that a video you did about money. What we ought to say about that at the very beginning is that money leaves town.